Yeah, surprise everybody. Yeah, no Chris, no Matt. So
Different Matt.
different Matt. Yeah. Well, hey, everybody. Scott Ailes, better known or sometimes known as the Dryced Man, and Matt Rutledge, R20 Motorsports, who's now my compadre in the Dryced Lab. Says he retired. Not so sure.
No, retired from high tech.
Okay.
From a
Wait
big
a
time
minute.
job, big boy job.
We're Dryced.
We're high tech,
We're
but
high
a different
tech.
way, a little different way.
Okay.
A little different way.
So this is a little bit of a brainchild and collaboration of a few people. We're just trying to get the word out on what Dryced is and what it's not. And so I said to Matt, both Matts actually, they were out bike riding Saturday, and I said, let's do a podcast and let's steal the OG spot and just talk a little bit about what we've come to learn and understand and know about Dryced and how it applies to all the different things. So for those of you that aren't familiar with us or myself or Matt, we'll just do a real brief introduction. So I'm the guy that plays with the stinky old cars, as Matt would say. Matt,
Young timer.
yeah, young timer cars. Yeah, it's a nice way to say it. But I grew up in the car business, 42 years in the business, and 5 years ago started the Dryced Nation program, and it was like a semi-retirement project that I thought would be fun. And what's really kind of interesting is when Matt and I met, I'll let Matt tell you how that played out, but I was fortunate enough to connect to a few folks, Matt Mormon and Tommy F. Yeah, and they kind of connected me and got me online, a way of marketing that wasn't quite familiar with. I mean, I used YouTube for years for weird things, so when you look at my channel, you definitely would be confused. So what was your experience when you first came to know about Dryced and Obsessed Garage and how we're related and what we're doing?
Well, I think I was interested in dry ice before you got into it and before Matt showed up with it. But it was one of those things when Matt was bringing the first car down to you and I was thinking about getting in the business, I was like, I got to get this done because this stuff's going to take off, right? I knew it was going to take off, but the fact that it was beyond, smaller channels on YouTube and it was kind of connecting with people that like Matt or I Am Detailing and some of the other channels that kind of blew up, I knew it was time to get going and get it on and sort of ride the wave. And it's been a lot of fun to do that. Yeah.
And it's surprising. It's for me, it's just short of 20 years since my first introduction to Dryced, and it was a kind of bizarre in a way, but you generally hear a lot in industry about how fast things move today compared to years past and centuries ago and such, but it's actually a lot slower than you think. And it I compare often to paintless dent removal that I was involved with in the 80s, and it took a long time. Like, you think back when you first heard about paintless dent removal, and then when it became mainstream, it takes 5 to 10 years. So we're 5 years into this now, and we delivered our first serial number 1 410S to the Porsche Classic Center in Atlanta at the Experience Center last week, Friday. And probably don't know, but Porsche has an event. The Classic Center has a challenge. They call it the Porsche Classic Challenge. So every Porsche dealer can restore a car as long as they spend $10,000 or more with the Classic Center buying parts. And then they compete against one another. And in that competition, I asked Ralph on Friday, I said, what was the dry ice situation like of the 23 cars in the final pick? They was at Rennsport. And he said they were all dry ice cleaned.
That's right.
And I said, 5 years ago? He goes, oh yeah, 5 years ago, 0, not 1. And so I think we're now into a place where it's known. You've either heard of it or you know about it, but do you really understand it, and how might it apply to you, and where are the places that it could be beneficial to you? And so for me, it's been an interesting career path to meet so many interesting people in the car business. And so our intent is there an audience that wants to understand more about dry ice, how it applies to the various elements of the automotive community and businesses, not just businesses though, but in everything. And then, actually have some, if there's interest, have some people on the show, on the podcast that could pontificate a little bit about what their thoughts are. Like we just spoke this morning with the guy that I met last week, and I didn't warn you that we were going to be meeting him. I didn't know that he'd be. Yeah, and so it's my new favorite car story. So I rented this spot to park an RV, and the guy, they just opened up this place, and the guy that I've known for 15 years that opened it, he's got a partner, and the partner comes up finally. I meet him after hearing about his partner so long, and he's an older guy and walking around with a drill and a screwdriver, and he introduces himself, and I said, "Man, you look familiar to me, Miles. I think I might have met you somewhere before." And he's like, "I don't know." So we chit-chat and find out maybe it's at the RV auction that Manheim Auctions has in Lakeland. And I said, "Yeah, probably there." And he goes, "Oh, you might have heard of our used car dealership." And I said, "Well, what was that?" He says, "Honest Rick's Used Cars." I can't say that I've heard of that. And he goes, "Well, maybe you heard about it and its final evolution, the name CarMax." So, he's just so casual about the way he presents it, and it's like he's one of the guys that started CarMax, and so you just never know. There's so many people. So
I have to say, as a new resident of Central Florida, this is the strangest place in the world, right? Like I came from LA, where car people are everywhere, and you expect that. It's logical. But I came here to Central Florida. We're out in the middle of the country. For those of you who haven't been to OGHQ, it's the middle of nowhere. There's horse properties. It's beautiful, don't get me wrong, but it's the middle of nowhere. But there's car stuff like galore here. It's really amazing, and it's all hidden. Yeah. So the fact that you stumble upon a founder of CarMax doesn't surprise me.
And he, I met him about a week and change ago, and while Matt and I were talking this morning to him after I introduced him, he says, "Now I've been watching these videos about dry ice, and I don't what's the magic? I don't get it. How does it work?" And so we go into our three staples of how dry ice works. The kinetic energy when the particle hits, and then the actual coldness at 108 degrees negative that causes things to shrink, and then lastly, the expansion, the 800 times its original size when the particle hits. And so now he's fascinated, and that has been my experience for the last 5 years. And I think that, when people watch online and they see, and just, be guarded, because what you're actually seeing online is when everything's perfect and just right. Because, you're not going to put the tough stuff on the internet.
You don't put the ugly cars online.
No.
You typically put the nice stuff.
Yeah, the stuff that's, like, when you know it's magical in your eyes and your hand, that's the stuff. Oh, good. Everybody says, "Grab the camera, quick! Let's get this. Let's get a clip of this." And so you don't see the ugly side. And so we do. I actually called Lincoln on the way over here to make sure he was okay that we talk about our visit. So Matt and my other board member, or our board member at Dryced Nation, Tim
Doyle.
This is a 61-year-old memory that's just gone. So Tim Doyle, Matt, and I are going to the Peterson Automotive Museum on the 23rd of October to explore, just to see, can we collaborate and help people understand what dry ice is, what it's not, and how it can affect the community at large. And what I'm most excited about is being able to get out there and get in front of it, so people can have a better understanding if it applies to them or it doesn't.
So let's make sure that for the folks that are watching, that they know from a format perspective today, we intend to take questions.
Yep.
Right. So put your questions in the chat. We'll get there. You'll probably have to bear with us for a few minutes, especially Scott. Yeah. He tends to do that. But
everybody's laughing in the room. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I think it'd be helpful for folks who, I know they've heard Dryce. I know they've seen the videos and seen Matt come to the Dryce lab, but what's the mission of Dryce? What's the goal for Dryce? Because I'm not sure everybody understands what our mission is.
Yeah, that's fair. So, our goal is to be the community and the support for the people that are actually doing the work, and bifurcated to be the information to the people that are having the work done. What can it do for me? So, On the paid side, so we have Dryced Nation, which is a paid for platform by members. That's where we're constantly pushing the boundaries and discovering every car's different and how are they different and how can they execute at the highest level. So I'd say probably the most critical part to understand is we're interested in the highest level work. Like, we're not trying to do production. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but Dryced Nation was created for achieving the highest level of cleaning. But then there's also a really important value to bring to the public. What is it, and what do I need to know before I make a decision if I have it done?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that, we've been involved with dry ice for 3 years. You've been 5 years plus. I'm sure a lot of the OG, folks are familiar with it, but we run into people constantly that have never heard it, never seen it.
Right.
And so there is a lot of education. It can be scary for folks because you're potentially, if you think about a very high-end car or a car with provenance, you're potentially changing the car, or there's a lot of discussion about, are you changing the car? Are you just cleaning the car? So there's a lot of misconceptions about what it is. And our goal is really to educate and train people, train our potential new shops that are, buying equipment from us or using other equipment. We don't really care. We at the end of the day, we just want them to be successful. But we also help them spread the message, right, about what dry ice is and what it can do and what it can't do. I think that's the other big misconception is, there's an impression of that dry ice is magic and can restore things that are completely gone, and it really can't. Right?
No. And I think it's important to, share that dry ice is a little unusual. I use an analogy often about, you can get your car painted for $800 or you could get your car painted for $50,000. And the people that want the $50,000 paint job, they know they're going to wait for it because that shop's booked. But dry ice is really interesting in that you don't get do-overs. When you've ruined a car, if you don't know what you're doing, you have the wrong equipment, the wrong settings, or you don't understand what's underneath what it is you're taking off, and you strip it, make it blotchy, or hurt it, a paint guy can be disgusted, sand it all back down, take it off, and respray it, and make it perfect. You can't do that in dry ice. You get one shot to get it right.
Yeah, car's only new once.
It's only new once. And if you take that stuff off, if you don't understand and have the resources to understand, like if you're a Porsche aficionado and that little sticker at the bottom of the shock is on there and you get your car dry ice clean, it comes back and it's missing, that's probably a problem. But if you're not, if you just want to, make a car look pretty and sell it for more money.
If you're Matt Moorman and you want to remove all the paint marks because you don't like the way they look.
I mean, that was a watershed, that Evo project. I said, what do you want to do? He says, take all that stuff off. It makes my tools dirty. That's the first time in 5 years that we just stripped all that stuff off. And it was actually kind of fun.
Yeah, it is.
I enjoyed it.
For sure.
Yeah. So
I think the other thing, I think there's a generational shift, right? So I grew up in the car business. My parents owned a garage, and I grew up around hot rods and people rebuilding cars and that sort of thing. And, if you take a car from the 50s or 60s, it was pretty easy to nut and bolt, take it apart, clean it, paint it, and put it back together. But, the cars from my childhood and the stuff that I like, 80s and 90s, maybe Radwood kind of stuff. There's a lot of electronics. There's a lot of plastics. They're very complex. There's probably 5 times as many parts in a 1980s 928 as there is in a 57 Chevy or a Camaro or something. So it's really not manageable to take that car apart. And we have kind of a funny saying, preservation, no disassembly required, because that's the goal of dry ice, is really to get that car into as pristine factory condition as we can get it, without actually having to turn a wrench if you don't have to.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not even a wrench. It's even worse. It's a piece of plastic with a clip.
Right.
And we all know what happens 20, 30 years, a piece of plastic becomes brittle. And that really became a thing in my world when I was wholesaling cars in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. we didn't have this problem. Like, you could just unscrew and unbolt, and now when you take these cars to get service, I've had many mechanics say to me, if it's running right, I don't want to touch that stuff, because if I start pulling that harness off and touching that plastic, it's brittle, it's going to break, and you can't get this stuff anymore.
That's right.
And so if you can, like, tell them what our latest project is in the shop today, the Dryced Lab.
Well, what year is that? Is it 86?
I think it's an 88. I'm not sure.
I don't know. It's like a 10,000-mile Suzuki Samurai.
Yes.
It's awesome.
So this is a
it's filthy, but it's nice.
This is a perfect example to share. People say, "Oh, this is an expensive process. This is only for expensive cars." No, it is for cars that are important to people. And this particular car was purchased by a good friend of ours, who's a customer, of course, and he has the Concours show up in the Northeast, the Turtle Garage Invitational, and he had this car in high school. And so he said, like, I've been looking for the best one I could find. I found it. It's a one-owner original car, but he wants it, like, he cares about cost and value, but he wants it to be the best that it can be, and he's got a car collection. That Suzuki Samurai is going to bring him joy, and it's not a particularly valuable car.
No, but it's cool.
It's is
definitely going to
cool.
be interesting,
and we're going to learn a lot.
So maybe we take our first question
right.
From Tom here. I sometimes see dry ice removing the factory coating from the bottom of a vehicle. Can you explain what that is, and is it safe to remove on a daily driver?
Yeah, great long answer question, but the short version is, we always want to know what the customer wants. What's the expectation of the customer? So sometimes the customers know, sometimes they don't know. They bought this great car and it's got a coating on it, and they're going to turn to us, hey, is this factory? Was this done by the factory? Why was it put on there? So we get a lot of cars that are 80s, 90s, 2000s that were shipped from Europe, Germany, Mercedes, BMW, Porsche, and they had extra coatings put on them when they were shipped over here through the salt air. They wanted to protect them. Just like you buy a new Porsche, it's got all that white wrap on it, right? So it's a consistent question that we address by first trying to understand what's the intended use of the car. Are you going to show it, drive it, collect it, put it in a warehouse, hopefully sell it for more money later? All of those things are relevant. So it can be a dealer-installed coating. It can be factory-installed. Some people want it off no matter what, like Matt's Evo.
Right.
I don't want to deal with that.
He didn't want the sticky bottom.
Don't want the sticky stuff. And I will tell you, so for provenance, there's an absolute argument, don't touch that car. Like, you got a 6,000-mile car with original yellow Cosmoline, hasn't even turned black. There's an argument to say, don't touch that car with dry ice. Leave that thing alone.
From a value perspective. I mean,
yes.
If provenance equals value, I guess that's what.
Yes, but in context, does the owner intend to ever sell it, and does a clean underside bring him joy? So, where does value lie? There's no clear single answer.
Yeah, you're bending my words. At the end of the day, it's the value of the car.
Yep.
To your point, if like Matt, right? If he's going to enjoy the car more, even if it's worth less in the end, he's not getting his wrenches dirty or whatever.
Right.
That's of course his value,
choice. Yeah.
Right. But the value of the car might be less.
Correct.
I think the other thing is, what I've found is like Porsches are an interesting study because you can see how they've evolved over time from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. Right about the 997 generation, .1 to .2, they stopped putting Cosmoline on. And I think it's a function of the cars, the shipping environment that they were in. The ships were open back in the day, and the new ships are conditioned. So I actually think it's a big function of the fact that there's, conditioned environment coming across the ocean. So they don't have to put that stuff on, and they've stopped. So the new cars, so back to the question, I mean, I think if you have a new car, likely it doesn't have any coatings on it. We can dry ice clean it to get it clean, but if it's a daily driver, it's a big investment if it's something you're going to go get dirty again.
And I think what you brought up years ago, actually, in one of our Monday night calls with our Dryce members, that's stuck in my head is, it's obvious now that you pointed it out. Once you dry ice clean the underside of a car, even if it has some kind of coating, it's not difficult to keep it clean.
Right.
If you're going to ignore it, well, that's a problem. But I caution everybody to think about something that's kind of interesting. Might make you think. Class 8 trucks. I started, my career driving semis, lowboy truck for my dad in Iowa, in a very salty environment, right in the winter. Class 8 trucks, Kenworth, Peterbilt, anything you want to mention. Never in the history of Class 8 trucks have they ever undercoated one. And they get subjected to every road, every season, 100,000+ miles a year, but they have no undercoating. Kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So, it matters about how you intend to use it. I'm not a big fan of coatings. I'd rather have it factory paint where I can get in there and keep it clean.
But certainly we have a lot of shops in our group that are in the, the Northeast where there's a lot of salt and brine on the roads, and they dry ice clean and then they undercoat, and they do, really nice work with that. So I think it really depends on, your driving environment.
It does. And I don't think there's a better way to prep a car for undercoating than with dry ice, because you're not getting it wet. Especially,
like domestic pickup trucks, or even the, Toyota, Tundras and Tacomas that they're rusty in the rail yard. So, that's where, if you don't want to see any orange, cover it up.
Right.
And it'll look good.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, so if there's no other questions, I'm going to digress a little bit. You got anything?
Yeah, we do. We actually, Nick Nasser, Scott, could you talk a little bit about how you became the dry ice guy? We call him the Dryced Man, so I'll just correct you on that. How did you learn it, and what motivated you to take on such a massive project?
Yeah, so I've spent my entire career trying to present at the highest level. Buy low, sell high. My dad had a fundamental principle that I applied in valuing things, which was anything that's like new and is serviceable is worth half of new to an end user. So if I'm going to buy and sell used things, I wanted them to be presented as clean as they could be, so my stuff looked a little bit better than the next guy, or car, or truck, whatever I'm selling. So I explored a little bit on the equipment side, construction equipment side, when I was buying and selling with Caterpillar Tractor's Federal Defense Products Division, because we'd get these 20-year-old military machines that have no hours on them, but they're dirty and sun-faded. And I thought dry ice might serve, that purpose of rejuvenating them. But it was weird, because I called a rental company that rented the machines. You could tell he didn't want to rent a machine to me. It made it like impossible to actually do it. So I kind of dropped it. And then I focused and followed a company in Ohio, Coldjet, to see what their story was. And they had some interesting machines. They seemed to be the predominant leader in the space, from my view. And in the spring of 2019, I had decided to pare down my collection of stinky old cars, as Matt would call them. And
not this Matt, the other Matt,
yeah. And I wanted to do something with the underside of the cars so they looked a little bit better, because I was selling them on this relatively new platform. I've been selling on Bring a Trailer since, 15 or 16. But that was a big deal. If you have underbody pictures of the car, it's probably going to do better. And my philosophy on selling online is, if someone asks you a question, then your presentation is lacking. So if you've done a full presentation, there's no questions. So I thought, well, if I could clean the car, you could see if it had rust. I wouldn't have to answer questions whether it had rust or not. I wouldn't have to answer any questions. Hey, has this car been wrecked? We can see it's not been wrecked. So Coldjet came out with a machine that resonated with me in that it allowed you to make the size of the dry ice particle, which is a standard worldwide, 3 millimeters or rice ice. You could make that smaller in the machine before it gets to the gun. And that connected to me. So I said to my wife of 43 years, less at the time, I said, can I do this as a semi-retirement project just to kind of have fun? And I remember the moment that I pulled the trigger on that machine, not knowing that the machines we sell, ICS, actually came up with that idea in 2014, 5 years earlier, but didn't know about them. I pulled that trigger and I saw the effect that you guys are all seeing online with my own eyes. Just think about that for a second. that stuff's coming off easier than I've ever been able to clean anything. And I'm the only person that knows it at the moment. It's just like I made the conscious decision. I can either keep this to myself and leverage it and take advantage of it myself. I'm like, wow, man, how does he clean those cars? So why does this car always bring more money? That would be the model that most people would gravitate toward. Keep it private, keep it quiet. But the thought came to me, I could make the cars better for eternity, right? They could be cleaner and people would probably take care of them even better if they were. And I could probably help a lot of people work for themselves and become independent and make good money, work hard, because make no mistake,
it's hard work. Hold a gun over your head for 6 or 7 hours a day. It's
like take one of those little dumbbell things and hold it at your desk. Just hold it for an hour right here.
So Tom has another question. What's the most unique and surprising use for dry ice cleaning? And he says, I know you like cleaning tires with it. Yeah, that is Scott's one of his.
I'm a dry tire guy.
Favorite.
I can't stand getting the tires slicked up. You drive down the road and it slings all over my fender, and so I like dry tires. I like them perfectly clean. Probably the aha moment for me so far was the Porsche Targa top. So I had an '86 Porsche Targa on Bring a Trailer, and it was like a day left. And somebody said, "Is the headliner on the Targa top drooping?" And I took a gazillion pictures and videos and dry ice cleaned this thing. I was proud of the work I did, and I looked at the picture that he's looking at, and I'm like, oh, missed that. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to not present a fault up front. So I was mad at myself for not calling it out from the beginning. And so then the comments on Bring a Trailer, if you're not familiar with it, check it out. But they have a comment section on every car. So I decided to go look at it in person, pulled it out, flipped the Targa top upside down. I have a YouTube video on my channel. And I just disassembled a few bolts and I folded the factory cloth back. It's just the glue let go. It's a common problem. And so I thought, because they're on the comments are like, oh, it's $500. It'll take 3 weeks, just prepare. And you don't want that kind of conversation on your auction. So I'm going to see if I can do this. So I sprayed the glue off the fabric, off the backside. What is that, 40-year-old car? Took the glue off the fabric without hurting the fabric, without getting it wet. Took the glue off the aluminum, got my super 3M adhesive, misted it on there, put the thing back on, tighten the screws, put it back together. I will tell you, it was very gratifying to take a picture of the original material back on the car with it being tight and posting it on Bring a Trailer within 4 hours.
Yeah, I think dry ice is really interesting. It works on a lot of different things, right? And there's so many, once you have it in your arsenal, your tool arsenal, it's really hard to think about life without it. I would say that, plastic refinishing is one of the things that comes to mind for me. I mean, if you think about like your pickup truck or a Jeep or whatever, that the plastics turn white on, it's oxidation. And with dry ice, we can peel that off and actually make the plastic like brand new. And people say, oh, well, how long does it last? Well, it lasts as long as a new piece of plastic would.
Right.
It just depends on what you subject it to. So,
right.
There's definitely some really cool stuff we can do with it.
There is, and I think one of our members, Jonathan. I think Jonathan was the first Sub-Zero in Texas, right? He's the first guy to do Alcantara.
Yeah, Alcantara is amazing. In fact, huge. It killed me when Matt started sanding the Alcantara on the GT3 RS. I was like, why did you wait for us? We could have totally made that even nicer. I mean, I know it does a nice job with the process that OG has, but the dry ice is just that much better. Yeah,
I mean, that stuff is so nasty after time. And then he inspired me to play around with. I took an old leather belt, and you can actually take a smooth leather and make it suede.
Right, make it furry.
Yeah. It's really, really cool.
So we have one question actually coming my way. It says, Matt, how and where did you start dry ice cleaning, and how did you meet Scott? So I think many folks that are in the dry ice world, Jacob at I Am Detailing is has probably the biggest channel in terms of views.
Yeah.
He's a pretty amazing detailer. He's what I would call a restoration detailer. He takes things apart. He takes $5 million Mercedes Gullwings apart like nothing.
He's an automotive renaissance man.
He's not afraid of anything.
Yeah.
And he's pretty amazing. And so I saw it there and I was like, how do I not know about this? I'm a Porsche collector. I have some old, dirty, stinky Porsches that, I had a 4-post lift in the garage. I put it above and it's like, I don't like looking at the bottom of this car. So that's when I went down the rabbit hole. I met Scott because Scott was affiliated with Cold Jet early on in the early days, and Cold Jet was the only real machine you could get. Right, we didn't have other options like we do now. So that's how Scott and I met, was trying to get a shop set up, and then Dryced Nation kind of got formed, and I started there, and it's been a really good community. For everybody starting out. Now we've got guys that have been in business 3 years, a lot of experience, and we get new guys every day that we try to help get up and running, right? Get them going.
Yeah, he was pretty kind though. He left out the
part where you ghosted me.
Yeah, so I was like, I counted it one day. I have 22 messaging platforms that I try to keep track of, right? And I'm one guy. And he asks me a question about...
I will say Scott is in his 60s.
Yeah.
And he, technology-wise, you're at the very upper end of capability with technology.
Never mind this.
Even though you do have an Android phone. That's okay.
So he asked me, like, it was the final question for me, to get a sale from him when I was selling Gold Jet at the time. And he just wanted to know the outlet. What's the thread?
Yeah, how do I connect it to the wall?
How do I connect it to the actual tank or whatever, And I missed the question. And I'm sure I saw it, but I just got my phone rang or whatever. And so then the reality is, as he tells it in other circumstances, is I'm going to join this Dryced thing. It's not that much money. Because I just want to find out what this guy's all about. I think it's smoke and mirrors. So he didn't trust me. And I get that. I get, like Ralph Strack at the Porsche Classic Center, he walked away from me once I was demonstrating one of our processes and techniques we came up with, and he walked like 20 feet away to talk to my wife, Deborah. He's like, man, he's like a little out of control. I'm like, well, she says, he's just passionate. And I am. I'm a little overbearing when I'm excited about something.
Scott can be a little intense.
Yeah. But it's just who I am, and I'm certainly not changing at 61.
So let's see. Steve has a question. Ballpark cost or range to have a 911 or similar size car done?
Yeah. So go to Bring a Trailer and search Scott_Ailes. I've sold a bunch of 911s that I dry ice cleaned. We can dial those in pretty tight now. If you give me carte blanche, or if Matt has carte blanche, like, hey, make it look the best you can make it look, it's ballpark. If it's a air-cooled car, it's $4,500.
Yeah,
plus or
G-body.
minus.
Yeah,
G-body car.
Yeah.
If it's a, your
a
genre,
996, 997, it's going to be less.
Less Cosmoline, it'll be less money. I've never done a car less than $1,500. It was a Lotus Esprit. Lotus. What the heck was it?
Elise?
Lotus Elise was 6,000 miles. No Cosmoline.
Yeah, those are just aluminum.
It's just nothing. And I that was on Brig a Trailer. You can see that too.
Yeah.
So it's $250 an hour. 50 of the 250 plus or minus is the dry ice. So after you make the investment for the shop, and you charge, $250 an hour, you're going to retain plus or minus $120 to $150 an hour for your pretty damn hard work. You're not going to work 8 hours a day.
Well, I think the thing is, one, there's a pretty significant equipment investment.
Yes.
Unlike general detailing, which, is an investment in time and education experience. The equipment is actually quite a low investment, whereas dry ice, originally to start my dry ice business, I spent $100,000.
Yeah.
Right. So you've got to recoup your investment. It's coming down, right? The machines have gotten a little bit cheaper, and a little bit more competition, and obviously will drive some of that pricing down. But our cost is going up, right? Dry ice is getting more expensive. Rents, everything else, that goes into the business is going up. So I think that's going to stay pretty consistent. But, we always sort of say minimum of $2,000.
Yeah.
But likely it's going to be somewhere between $2,000 to $4,000 depending on the car, right?
And I would definitely, like anybody considering having it done to their car, definitely ask for photographs. If somebody doesn't have good photographs of what they've done, that means they haven't done it.
That's right.
And so one of the things we did when we forged the relationship with a Slovakian company that was unknown here, ICS. We wanted to create a lesser cost, simpler, more analog machine that had a wider range of ability, and then additionally, a machine you could start with single phase power. And so that has proved out to be a painful experience for me. Like it has been the most awkward experience to know what's coming and to have it be 6-7 months late, like our competitors are all like, oh, you're buying a machine from them, you're never going to get it. I'm like, well, you're going to get it, but it's just taken us longer than we want to. And now that I've played with both the machines, that's the problem with the pursuit of perfection. No matter how cool or nice it is and how well you think you hit the target, there's like 8 things I want to change immediately. So we're just always going to push for our machines to be, what we consider to be the best for you if you're a customer hiring a shop. Doesn't mean that you can't be successful with other equipment. We're just trying to provide the best experience for both the retail customer and the shop that are doing it.
I think we have a similar philosophy as Matt, actually, right? I mean, I think Matt's philosophy in general is I want to use the best product. I want to sell the best product. We have the same philosophy, whether it's our product or someone else's. It just so happens we think that the best machines on the market today are the ICS machines from a value, from a simplicity perspective. Doesn't mean the other machines don't work. Doesn't mean you can't run a business with them. And we support people that do that.
Yep.
If tomorrow someone came out with a proprietary machine that was hands over better than ICS, we would probably switch.
Yep.
Right. It's the same logic.
And I mean, obviously, with my relationship, I have the exclusive distributorship for U.S. and Canada for ICS, and Matt and Obsessed Garage is the exclusive retailer. So you can't buy one of these machines unless you're buying it through Obsessed Garage. But one thing that has been beneficial in our quest of perfection in the machine is they listen to us, and we're the guys doing the work. Like, that's the part that I think has been the most valuable for our community, the Dryced Nation, the 75 people in the community. Like, a lot of companies pay for a focus group. Like, you were in advertising, marketing manager of a hard drive company, the largest in the world.
You always downgrade me.
I don't know the difference.
Marketing manager.
I think it's an upgrade, and I don't know. Just keep correcting me. Marketing. So, but the upshot is that we have somebody that'll listen. Like, they actually, I'm constantly engaged with engineers.
I was a product guy, so we brought products to market. I worked for Western Digital and Seagate in the hard disk drive business, right? And what we found was if we could tailor a product to a specific market, as a manufacturer, we could charge more money for it. It was more valuable. And at the end of the day, the consumer or the user of the product got a lot more value out of it as well, right? Because it was a very specific product for their use. That's what we're doing with the dry ice machines with ICS. I mean, Cold Jet created a machine that works on cars, but it wasn't made to do cars. Mm-hmm. In fact, they tried to talk us all out of doing it when we first got into the business. Now we probably have sold more machines for them than anybody.
Yeah. I mean, while we were waiting for our machines to get through serial production, there are countless people I told, buy another machine, get your shop open.
Right.
I mean, I have customers that don't want to be in the business, but they want the work. Like my guy in Santa Cruz. When are you going to get a dry ice cleaner in Santa Cruz?
Right.
We have one now, right? So that's like the key to it. It's you're not missing the boat, but your customers, if you're a shop, your customers want it. Right. Don't kid yourself.
So Dominic asks, do you guys have anybody trying to steal your knowledge or products?
Yeah, of course. Everybody does. I mean, so what does that mean? Like, I have to give credit to the shop CryoWorks in California.
That's right, San Diego area.
They had an article on Petrolicious.
No.
That inspired me. So did I steal it? So I like to leave a runway wide open for anybody to enter the market and be. There's 35 million collector cars registered in the U.S. Our guys don't need to clean all of them, right? So our goal is to be the highest level. Yes, we have a protected community, Dryced Nation. We charge $250 a month to be a member of Dryced Nation, right? That's protected. And, we have a lot of things within that community that we think are important to keep available for those people. But in the end, we know eventually, like paintless dent removal, that was when I did that.
Yeah, you couldn't. You had to. They would lock the garage and make you.
I would go in the back of the lot.
Yeah.
And I told the managers, if anybody comes within 100 feet, my tools go down, I stop, and you get billed double. So that was a big deal.
Right.
Now, what? Now the guy comes and does it right in front of your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a secret? No, but you got to freaking know what you're doing. And you got to have the right tools. You got to have the right experience. You got to have access to knowledge. And so that's what we're focused on. Just being that support.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's like anything. I mean, anybody can go on YouTube and learn something. The question is, do you have the energy and the desire and the passion to do it, and to do it at a very high level?
Well, it's actually, I love that aspect because, like, that's the most consistent thing that I hear from people that call and ask or email. And they say, I've been doing some research, or I'm going to go do research. Like, where? Where are you going to research? You're just watching videos. Not that that's bad, but you can't get the nuts and bolts of it unless you're in the group and you're with the people that are doing the work.
Right.
Burning muscle.
So 888 Works has a good question. Do you see dry ice machines evolving and increasing efficiency where they might be readily available for all like pressure washers are? I feel it won't be long until Asian manufacturers start chasing. Actually,
it's happening.
We have Asian manufacturers in the business. Green Ice is a brand that's basically a Chinese knockoff.
Yeah, you could buy a machine for $800.
Right.
I mean, it's not a duty cycle machine. So I often comment to people about the tools I have, and now that I have Sonic tools, it's a little different. But my entire career, farming and trucking and auto, right? I got the old man tools. Like, I got them all. My grandfather's tools, my dad's tools.
This is very timely. I mean, Scott's got a Snap-on toolbox.
I do
at the dry slab. So.
Yeah, but that's another story. But the reality is that I have Chinese tools in my shop. But you know what I don't do? I don't count on them working every day. They don't, because I can't. Like, if I buy,
you started with a Chinese compressor, right?
Oh my gosh, go to my channel and watch those videos. Like,
yeah, painful.
Oh, so I think that's, yes, I 100% agree. But we've proven a point that I made like 4 years ago, one of my early commentaries. I said, if I gave you a dry ice machine, it would not mean your success. Matt Mormon gave our newest IC030 to one of our members that heard Matt and I on a podcast talking about, blah, blah, blah. And so he just thought it was cool that the kid responded at 22 years old. I want to go in the dry ice business. I'm going to leverage my crypto, borrow some money from.
Well, he was responding to get a better job. Do the Matt Mormon?
Yes,
life philosophy, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And so Matt was kind enough to give him a machine. Has it been easy because he got a machine for free? Hell no. It's still tough. It's still hard. So if you focus on, hey, I'll wait till there's a used one, that's cool. That will happen. What's my dad's philosophy? Half of new, right? That's the baseline. If something's in demand, you're going to pay more than that. But yeah, you'll be able to buy machines less. But what about what's behind the machine? What about the compressor, the desiccant dryer, the two tanks, the filters, the airline? Now we've dropped the number from 100 to 40-ish.
That's right.
40. So it's, hey, I just saved you $60,000. Does that mean you're going to succeed? No. No, it's still hard work. You can't do it 8 hours a day. No way. And it's dirty. So you got to have all the PPF and, and you got to make sure where you're doing it. It's not abusive to the people around you. It's there's just a lot more to it that make it, if you just do the work at production levels, it's hard. If you do it at a high level to the most discriminating owner, that's tough.
Yeah, and it's not easy to get someone. I mean, think about it. Guy's got a car collection. He's got a couple $100,000 Porsche and Ferrari and whatever. How do you convince that guy to bring your car in, right? Like, how do you,
Right.
They're questionable. They're like, oh, how sketchy is this guy? Do I trust him?
I mean, your car's 6.5 feet in the air.
Yeah. Just lifting a car. I mean, think about it.
The liability.
We part of the training that we do in Dryced is we help people with lifting cars up because we have people that are new to the business that have never lifted a Ferrari. And, sometimes if you get a Ferrari that's got an engine out because they're doing belts, if you don't lift it right, it'll flop off the front of the lift because it has no weight in it. Right. So, there's a lot to what we do that is not even remotely related to the dry ice machine. The dry ice machine is actually easy. It's probably the easiest part of what we do.
Yeah.
It's everything else that's more difficult. And that's the value of what we do with Dryced is help people.
Yeah.
Right? Help people.
You got to have the tools you got to have. You got to have the products, but you got to have them both.
So AT asks, have you had a recurrent client on the same car? Do you give discounts for a second cleaning?
That's a good one.
It's actually a good question.
It's a great question. I mean, it's a good question.
The thing is it's not that you give a discount, but likely...
the answer is yes.
Yeah, we have had cars
so
come back.
I did an early car, a green 996, and that my client moved from Naples to Charlotte.
Right.
And help me name Charlotte, North Carolina. Who's our Dryced guy?
Merritt?
Yes, Jared at Merritt Motor Company is in his backyard, and I was like, geez, why don't Bob just don't ship it to me? It's 600 miles. So he took it over there, and so this is a car he drove maybe 1,500 miles. It's a toy, and hour and a half.
Yeah, that's the thing. If specifically on like a Porsche, Mercedes, BMW, they're covered in cosmoline, which is a wax. It's sticky. It's everything you drive over,
like a glue
plus
strip.
the brake dust that comes off your tires sticks to the bottom of the car. Once you get all that off, then the next 1,000, 10,000, 5,000, whatever miles, nothing really sticks to the car. So it's not that you discount the next job. It's that instead of taking 10 or 15 or 20 hours, it's only going to take 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Right. To maintain it.
Or you do it yourself.
Or you can do it yourself with your lift. Or if you have a detailer that has a, nice, maybe a scissor lift or something like that, they can do it and they just wipe it down.
Krensla pressure washer.
Yeah. We don't recommend pressure washing, but,
Yeah. And I mean, that was one of the cars I had a Volvo XC90 when we started, and I opened the hood, and there's a plastic cover over some electronics up front, and it literally has an impregnated pressure washer wand with an X over it. Like, do not pressure wash this engine bay. They avoid the warranty.
Well, that's the big benefit of, even the smaller machines like an 022.
Yeah.
For a detailer, a production detailer,
it's perfect.
There is no pressure, there is no water to get into an engine bay, and you can clean an engine bay in 30 minutes, pretty easily, right?
Spectacular results too.
Yeah.
How are we doing for time?
A few more minutes.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, so I think we're pretty excited. Next year, one of our focus efforts is going to be to try to continue getting out into the community, the car community, to make sure that they feel comfortable of what questions to ask. The retail side is what I'm most concerned about, because early on I had a dealer friend of mine in Naples call me about what was that 86 Target that I did the top, He called me on this car, says, hey, I want to have that car dry ice cleaned. I see what you're doing. I'm like, okay. He asked me about how much. I gave him a price, a general sense of what it would cost. He goes, oh my gosh, I got a guy down here to do $800. I'm like, well, you should do that. That's a lot less than what I'll do it for. Go for it. I got a call 5 days later, just like this. I'm sending that car to you, by the way. I saw you change your mind. He goes, no, he did it. Okay, well, I said, why are you sending that to me? You'll see. It was terrible. It was just, I can't even explain. It was unbelievable. So, does the shop have insurance? Have they been trained? Do they have the particle control in the machine? Like, that's one part that people don't understand. It's ICS invented particle control in 2014. Coaljet has their version of it now, 2019. Nobody else has particle control in the machine yet. Everything's at the gun and later. So that works fine if you have plenty of room. But what about when you got to get in a controlled area in a small space? You can't do it. And it doesn't give you the simplicity of adjusting the size on the fly quickly. And that's where your car could become ruined.
Yeah, I think your comment about make sure if you're looking for a dry ice cleaner, whether it's one of our guys or whether it's someone that's not affiliated with Dryce, because there are good guys that are just independent, right? Yep. But pictures are really important. If you think about like detailing, if you get a great detailer, it's pretty easy to determine what's a good detail versus what isn't, because you can put the light on it and you can see the swirls and you can see the swirls disappear. The paint gets perfect, blah blah blah. Dry ice is a lot different than that. We deal with the surfaces on the bottom of a car. There might be 100 different surfaces, and so what Scott and I have talked a lot about, and is kind of I think a reason why we sort of get along and we think about the work in the same way is it's a very artistic process. You have to create contrast. You have to make the car look good, and you have to know what all those finishes are and how they react to what we do with it. You see the dry ice video, and first of all, it's usually sped up, so it's 10 hours of work in 30 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever it is. So, right. And then the other thing is what you don't see is the 400 adjustments you're making to the machine through the process, because you're coming across different parts of the car, right? So you're constantly changing, refining, to make sure that when you clean whatever surface you're cleaning, you're not ruining it. You're getting it to the max benefit. And then the last bit, and this is, trade secret, if you will, is handwork. We actually polish the bottom of a car or wipe the car down or, get a magic eraser out, or Scott calls them white erasers. But, there's some tricks like that take the car from looking good to looking perfect.
Yeah, and I've definitely enjoyed presenting cars now much more than I have in the past. I mean, the prior 30 years, like we cleaned a set of aluminum slot wheels for the 240Z from Kevin Watts, and we spent an hour per wheel, which is stupid, right? I didn't charge him for it because it was a personal effort for me, because I had a 71 Mach 1, it was my first car, and it had aluminum 5 slots. And those slots have like a rough aluminum finish. And I don't care. I mean, I tried everything back in the day to make those wheels look new, not polish them, but make them look cast and new. And there was no process until now. And so it was just like once I discovered it could be done, I couldn't not do it. And so that's like the discovery part of it is what's, I think, fun. And somebody asked earlier, what's the coolest thing that you've done so far, or what's the biggest discovery? Well, the biggest discovery we haven't found yet. Like there's some cool discoveries, so far. And there's one particular job that I did early on with a very good friend of mine, David Burrows, who started the Bloomington Corvette brand. That was his deal. And he sold it subsequently. But I did a very special car for him, and he's a curator for this car, and he stood behind me with this hand on my shoulder in case he didn't like something that I was doing, and he would tap my shoulder like, stop, And so that was it was like 67 degrees in that shop, and I had a T-shirt on and a light coverall, and I was sweating because he's back there, And I made a pass across something that I can't tell you what it is yet. Eventually, he tells me I'll be able to tell the world. And before our eyes, we saw something that doesn't exist on any other car of that version. And that was an automotive archaeology moment. Like that was amazing and cool. And so I think that's the part, when you're cleaning things without abrasion, and you just, the stuff just, and if you're not careful, like we talk about the video we watched where another cleaner, and it's happened to me, you pass by, you clean the crud off of something, and then, oh, look at that, there's a green paint mark from the factory. And instinctively, you're making successive passes. And in the video, it's like, oh, look at that green thing. And he goes, no. Oh, it's gone. Just like that. You lose it.
That's right.
Yeah, that's how it works. And so that's the part that's a little tricky. You never know when you're going to lose something.
So Dominic has another question. Do you have any customer testimonials? I would say we don't specifically for Dryced because we technically, each individual shop is a cleaner.
Right.
So Scott has testimonials. I have testimonials on my website and in, Google reviews and that sort of thing.
But I've got people that would love to talk to you. If you really want to drill down, I got the people, my customers are so passionate, they would love to talk to anybody.
Right. Yeah. Your customer is your best salesperson.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where most of my work came from. But what I would say though, is we do a lot of work for cars that go on Bring a Trailer.
Yeah.
And so, customer testimonials sort of happen naturally through the community aspect of Bring a Trailer. And that's a place where you can see a lot of the work.
Yeah. And as I said earlier, Scott _Ailes is my Bring a Trailer feed. And I've got what do we have on there now?
SL600.
Yeah. An 05 SL600 that we did. Yeah. We've got a 2000 Rolls Seraph with 12,000 miles.
But we did that. Coming. We did the SL. I mean, Bryce is sitting here with us. He did the photos. He's a great photographer.
Yes, sir.
Helped us take it up to the expert level.
If you look at my pre-Bryce Bring a Trailer days, like I might have had the idea where the car should be positioned, but the quality of the photo is like 30% better on the Bryce pictures. Earned.
Right. Yeah, and Scott's pretty picky. Right, Bryce?
I'm an impossible person to deal with.
He's shaking his head.
That's why I don't have employees. I have people that get a part of the profit. That's how, instead of employees, it's like, here, you get a cut, you get a cut.
All right. Well, I think we've spent about an hour of time here.
Yeah.
What's your final comment on the Dryced OG podcast takeover?
Yeah, so I think for us, we're looking at the potential to do this maybe on a monthly basis, and to we need some feedback, of course. Be as brutal as you want, I don't care. But there's going to be constant evolution in this process, and we'd like to bring some of my friends or my people that I know from the car world in that may or may not know about Dryced or dry ice, and just so you can kind of get some flavor of what my experience has been like as I've exposed. I've got 2,200 people on my email list in the car world in my 40-plus years career. And so I think it could be interesting. We hope it to be interesting to bring those personalities into the space, not just have you and I talking.
Certainly not have us talk. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot more interesting.
more the better, but to a degree. Yeah. So I mean, we just kind of hijacked. I said something to Matt Saturday, and I said, let's try this. And he said, what channel are you going to do this on? I'm like, yours.
Yeah, we want to thank Matt and Bryce, and we kicked Chris out of his office to set the camera up. So thanks to the OG crew for all the support.
Definitely, yeah. And if we digress, it'll be because it's entertaining and people want to hear more. So
that's right.
That's what we're going to try. So appreciate your time, and we're going to sign out for now, and let's see what everybody's got to say.
That's right.
Thanks.
Thanks, OG.
Appreciate it.